Okay, so we're going to continue reading in the Gospel of Matthew. We're going to try to do Matthew chapters 10 through 13 today. Unfortunately, I have totally messed up my note cards. I still have them, but they're way out of order, and I don't have a clue what corresponds to what, so I'll have to straighten that out myself before I get around to this again, but I don't think we're really going to need them today. These next couple chapters are going to be fairly straightforward. And whatever quotations we do need to look up are going to be, a lot of them are going to be footnoted right here in our text, in the margins. So we're going to be reading. We're going to try to get to chapter 13 today. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I'm a little pressed for time. I got to go somewhere a little bit later, and so I may not be able to get all the way through. I'm going to try. So we have read in chapters 8 and 9 about Jesus. Okay, so we read about the Sermon on the Mount. We read about the beginning of Jesus' ministry, at the beginning of Matthew, chapter 3 and 4. And we read about the Sermon on the Mount in 5 through 7. And we read a couple chapters full of stories of Jesus implementing the kingdom on earth in chapters 8 and 9. And now we're going to read about Jesus sending out his disciples and getting them ready to accept their role in the kingdom. Kind of like a practice run, so to speak, for what they're going to be doing later on when he's no longer with them. Right now, he's still with them. And so this is kind of more like a test run for how they're going to minister and evangelize in the days to come when he is no longer with them. And the kingdom really is spreading on earth in the form of the church. Right now, it's kind of more of a test run. Now, a lot of the stuff he's going to say here in chapter 10, as he talks to his disciples, probably he didn't actually say at this time. Later on, as we get through chapter 10, we're going to start reading some warnings and prohibitions and predictions and things. When we read the Gospel of Mark, some of that stuff was included much later on in his Gospel, when he was warning about the upcoming end of the age, which we read about in Mark 13. And Matthew will give an account of that sermon too in Matthew 24 and 25. But some of the warnings that Mark gives there, Matthew's going to put here. And we'll talk about that when we get to it in the second half of chapter 10. But this is one of those examples where Matthew is probably not recording this information in the order in which it actually happened, because I doubt Jesus said all this to his apostles at this particular point in time. But we'll get into that as we go through chapter 10. Chapter 10, Matthew chapter 10. I can't stop the cats. They're out here. I tried to get one to sleep, and now I got another one. I can't stop them. I can't stop them. So they're just going to be here doing this stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to do something, cat. Why don't you just go sit in the corner somewhere or something? Why don't you just go, hang from that hook over there or something? Just do something that doesn't bother me for a while. I gotta do this, cat. Life is just so difficult with cats. Everything is just more difficult than it needs to be when you have a cat in the house, let alone 3 of them. Matthew 10. He called his 12 disciples together. So actually, let's go back and read the last couple of verses of chapter 9. The 9 verse, starting in verse 35. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. Now this is very similar to what was said at the end of chapter 4. So we know that that's kind of like a block of text, kind of talking about the beginning of his ministry, his solo ministry. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. Now that ended with the Sermon on the Mount. That led into the Sermon on the Mount when he went up to the mountain and started to speak. This one's going to lead to him sending out the 12 to carry on the ministry in groups of 2. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." And that's what's going to happen here. He called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out evil or unclean spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. and to heal every disease and sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Philip and Bartholomew, they were sent out in pairs. If you flip over to Mark, where we read this last time, or not last time, but we read this before. Let's see here. Mark 3 kind of has this all together when he calls the apostles and then sends them out right away. Well, that's not what I wanted. That's just the calling of the apostles. Hang on a second. There it is. Mark 6, excuse me. Mark 6, verse 7, calling the 12 to him, he sent them out 2 by 2. Now, Matthew doesn't explicitly say they were sent out 2 by 2, but he gives us the pairings. The teams that were sent. 6 teams of 2 guys each. Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Philip and Bartholomew. Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector. James, son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus. Simon the Zealot, or Simon the Canaanite in some translations, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any towns of the Samaritans. So right now, and that will be rescinded. That command will be rescinded. He's not going to keep that prohibition in place forever. That's only for this particular circuit around Israel. As they're going off on this initial survey of the land, basically, they're only going to stick to the Jewish communities at this point in time. That won't stay that way, but it is that way right now. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, preach this message: the kingdom of heaven is near. It's the same message that John started preaching when he arrived on the scene. This is a message that Jesus has been very consistent about. And again, that's even what John was saying at the beginning. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, so freely give. They're not supposed to hoard it. It's not theirs to keep for themselves. Do not take along any gold or silver or copper in your belts. Take no bag for the journey, or extra tunic, or sandals, or a staff, for the worker is worth his keep. So you're going to get taken care of by the people on the road. Again, I don't know if this is not necessarily a blanket command for all evangelizing disciples for all time. We know this because the command to stick only to the lost sheep of Israel is rescinded by the end of the Gospel of Matthew. He'll tell them specifically to go out into all the world, including Samaria and these other regions that he's telling them not to go to now. So these are not blanket commands to be followed for all time. Right now he's basically teaching them that you're going to be taken care of by people on the road. Don't worry. He's calling them to put into practice the whole thing about not worrying about tomorrow, which is he said in the Sermon on the Mount. At the end of this, chapter 6 and 7 of the Sermon on the Mount, tomorrow has no trouble on its own. Each day has no trouble on its own. He's basically telling them to put that into practice. To trust God for your daily bread. And don't take all these extra provisions preparing for your journey, but trust God to take care of you and to find people in each city to take care of you as you go. Whatever town or village you enter, search for some worthy person there and stay at his house until you leave. As you enter the home, give it your greeting or your blessing. If the home is deserving, let your peace or your blessing rest on it. If it is not, if the people there end up rejecting you, let your peace return to you. Take the blessing back. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, so if you don't find anybody in town who is willing to be a hospitable host, to shake the dust off your feet when you leave that home or town. That means, this is Gentile territory. This is unclean land. I tell you the truth. It'll be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. We'll read them. We'll talk more about that later, because he's going to say that again in a couple of chapters. So we'll save the discussion for that until later. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. So be smart, but be blameless. Be aware of yourself, of your surroundings, and the people around you. But if there's going to be conflict between them, don't let it begin with you. Now, the rest of this stuff he probably didn't say at this point in time. This early mission that they had, which I don't know how long it would have lasted, 3 months, 6 months, maybe not even that much, I don't know. None of the stuff he says for the rest of this chapter would have happened to them during this early scope of Israel, this early survey of Israel. So what he says, what Matthew records here, in verse 17 all the way down, probably Jesus didn't actually speak at this point in time. Matthew will record these warnings, and Luke will too, in the context of his predictions of the end of the age, which they ask him about when he says the temple is going to fall. And that is a much more fitting context, and that sort of thing would have happened then. It wouldn't have happened to the apostles as they were going on this first, survey of Israel at this point in time. So probably this section here probably didn't actually get spoken by Jesus in this context at this point in time. But Matthew was including it here. Because again, sticking strictly to the chronological sequence of events as they actually happened is not Matthew's priority, and it's not really the priority of any of the gospel writers, to the degree that we would like it to be, at least, certainly. Be on your guard against men. They will hand you over to the local councils. This is speaking about Jewish men here. This is all Jew versus Jew, interpersonal conflict within the Jewish community. They will hand you over to their local councils and flog you in their synagogues. On my account, you'll be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. Now, this did not happen during this initial ministry that they had here in Israel, which is why I don't think Jesus actually said this at this point in time. But when they arrest you, and the apostles wouldn't have been arrested at this point in the history, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time, you'll be given what to say. For it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will betray brother to death, and the father his child. Children will rebel against their parents, and have them put to death. All men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. When you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. I tell you the truth, you will not finish going into the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Now again, this is not a reference to their early initial ministry that they would have conducted at this point in time in the middle of Jesus' ministry on earth. This would have happened later on in the years to come. We read about some of that in the book of Acts. So this is not about the initial context of them setting out in their initial survey of Israel. A student is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for the student to be like his teacher, and the servant like his master. If the head of the house, and that's Jesus is the teacher, Jesus is the master, we're his servants and students. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebub, and we read about that at the end of chapter 9. At the end of chapter 9, when he's driving out demons that cause blindness and muteness, the Pharisees say it's by the prince of demons, Beelzebub, that he drives out demons. Now, we'll have more about that to come in chapter 2, but Jesus is saying here, if they call me Beelzebub, what do they think they're going to call you? How much more the members of his household? So do not be afraid of them. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. So everything is going to be brought to light eventually. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them falls to the ground apart from the will of your Father. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Every time you drive along a road and you see some roadkill on the side there, someone hit, maybe a bird flew into something, that didn't happen without the will of the Father taking place. And if he's that attentive to random sparrows flying into windows or other things. He's going to pay attention to you. Whoever acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before men, I will disown him before my Father in heaven. We see an example of this in Acts when Stephen is being stoned by the angry mob, and he says, he looks up and says, I see heaven open, and the Son of Man is standing at the right hand of God. Usually we read about him, Jesus, the Son of Man, sitting at the right hand of God, but in that case, Stephen says he saw him standing there. And I think that's a glimpse into Jesus acknowledging Stephen before God, as he says here that he will do. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace. He may have said this during this initial ministry, this initial survey of Israel. He may have said this. I did not come to bring peace, but sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Well, that's not exactly hard right there. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves his father or mother more than he loves me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son or daughter more than he loves me is not worthy of me. Anyone who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. That's our first reference to a cross in the Gospel of Matthew. What he's saying here is that if you're not willing to go down the road that I'm going to go down, which leads in Jesus' case, it led all the way to a cross. It may not necessarily lead you all the way to a literal cross, but if you're not willing to go down that road as far as it leads, wherever it ends up leading you, you're not worthy of following him. Whoever finds his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. It's like when Lot's wife apparently turned back and looked longingly at the cities that she left, Sodom, Gomorrah. She got caught apparently in the conflagration and turned to ash. Because she looked back. She was not willing to go down the road that the angels were trying to lead Lot and the rest of the family down. If you're not willing to go down that road to however far it goes. Now in Jesus' case it went to an actual cross. And in some other people's case, like they say that Peter was crucified upside down. I doubt he may have been crucified. I highly doubt he was actually crucified upside down. But because that would defeat the entire purpose of crucifixion, is doing it that way. But he may have been crucified. Other of the apostles may have been crucified. Paul was beheaded. That road may lead to that. Whether it leads to that or something else, if you're not willing to go down that road as far as it leads, you're not worthy of following him. He who receives you, and this goes back probably to what Jesus was saying about their initial ministry around Israel. He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives the one who sent me. This is very similar to how Jesus speaks in the Gospel of John. People have often said over the years, there was some validity, that Jesus speaks differently in John than he does in the other Gospels, and that's true to some degree. But here we have something that sounds like it came straight from the John version of Jesus, because this is very much how Jesus speaks in the Gospel of John. So in the end, it's not that different. He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives the one who sent me. Anyone who receives a prophet because he is a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. Remember, a prophet is the spokesman for God. A prophet is someone who speaks the message God put in his mouth to speak. So if you receive a prophet, you are going to receive the prophet's reward. Anyone who receives a righteous man because he is a righteous man will receive a righteous man's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones, that doesn't necessarily mean children, it just means his disciples. Because he is my disciple, I tell you the truth, he will certainly not lose his reward. After Jesus had finished instructing his 12 disciples, he went on from there to teach and preach in the towns of Galilee. So apparently, and I don't know how long this lasted for, apparently there was a stretch of time here after John is, and it's after John is in prison, because we're going to read in the next chapter that John hears about all this happening while he's in prison. So apparently there was a stretch of time where Jesus' apostles were out in teams of two. So there's 12 of them total, so there's 6 teams traveling around in pairs, going throughout strictly through the regions of Israel, not the Gentile regions, not even the Samaritans, who are a mixed breed of half Israelite and half something else, but strictly through Galilee, and I guess they were going down into Judea, I don't know. And Jesus either was doing that too, separately from them, or maybe he was kind of in retirement for a little while, waiting for them to come back. I'm not clear on that. I'm not clear on exactly what Jesus was doing while his apostles were out doing this, training, ministry, I guess you could say. I'm also not sure how long it would have taken. I don't think it was taking them too long. I mean, the territory they were traveling around was pretty limited in size, because especially since they were not going to Samaria, they were not going to the Gentile area, they were going to, and there were 6 teams of them, 6 teams of 2 people each. So I don't think it would have taken them too terribly long to do that. They may have, I don't know how long they would have stayed in each town, a week, maybe a couple of days, I don't know. So it probably would have only been a couple of months, but I really have no idea. None of the Gospels really give us an idea of how long this survey of Israel took the apostles to finish. But they did do it, and Luke will record them coming back and talking to Jesus about it. Matthew doesn't. So we'll move on with but the next couple chapters are going to be about the response. So now that that's happened, Jesus has gone through, we read about that before the Sermon on the Mount, and then afterwards, and now he's sending out the apostles, his disciples, his 12 disciples, to go and do that too. And we're going to be reading the response to that, to the ministry and the overall message that's being spread now in the next couple of chapters.